Hi folks, this is Lance from Runtime Recruitment. This is a video of a recent trip that I made to London where I interviewed Adam Taylor, a very experienced FPGA engineer who's been in the field for 20 years. We talk about all aspects of his background, his experience, some of his ideas on employment around the world, and general technical aspects of FPGA design, debugging, tools, etc. We cover a lot of different topics, so enjoy the video, enjoy the interview. It was done at Faraday Center, so have a listen and enjoy. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're at the Faraday Center with Adam Taylor. Can we start by you giving us a quick summary of your expertise, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I've been an electronics FPGA engineer now for the last 20 years or so. Started around, actually 19, so I graduated in 2000, but I did a year's in industry in sort of 2000, in 1998 to 99, so about 20 years of experience in the engineering industry, predominantly FPGA, digital board design, some RF, mostly working across sort of like the military, the aerospace, defence realms, and then more recently, obviously, I've run my own company for the last 4 years as a consultant engineer. So now I do a lot of content creation, showing people how to create, how to leverage these FPGAs and use them because they become more complicated. So people want to be able to use them, and obviously working on a range of projects. So I spent last year working on a sort of an autonomous vehicle project and a vision guided vehicle project for that. And currently working on a space project. It's all good fun.
Cool. Before we get into the other aspects of your interest, because you have other interests as well, can you tell me a little bit about what you think about FPGAs? You know, where do you think it's going, that technology?
I think that's an easy question to answer, because they are actually my love. Anybody that's read any of the 300-ish blogs I've written on, or the sort of 20 Hackster projects or whatever, would know that I have a real love and passion for FPGAs. And it's interesting. It's been an interesting journey. You know, when I started back in 2000 for Raytheon, actually, one of the first things we were working with sort of 4000 series Xilinx devices, working with actually the project I designed, the FPGA I designed, was a early Vertex part on it actually. But when you sit and look at what's the progress that what's been involved with that, what's interesting is when I first started around then, we had a company come in and talk to us about high-level synthesis using C for FPGA gate level, and it was kind of, everyone was kind of like, yeah, this is kind of interesting, but it's not quite there yet, in terms of performance. Then you move forward sort of about 13, 14 years to sort of mid-2015. Yeah. HLS was there with Vivado and with tools like SDSoC, so it's been really quite a journey. Obviously, we moved from the soft processors to embedded Power PCs. But in those ones, they were interesting because the FPGA was still the master. The FPGA configured the Power PC, and then it went away, and now you've got the Zincs and the VSoC where the processing system is very much the master. It boots like a traditional microcontroller, and then you can program the programmable logic. So it's a really good. It's been a really interesting journey. And if I couldn't do this, I had to have got a real job, which would have been no fun.
Because I think. My experience was with Xilinx when IT was an Aussie guy who ported Linux onto an FPGA. So do you think that that's kind of where it's going? Like Linux is going to become more embedded in hardware?
I do. I kind of really didn't give you a full answer to the last question, actually. But I kind of see that my point was before I started rambling was that the C. Back in 2000, we saw people coming in talking just about C. Fast forward 15 years, and this HLS and this SDSoC there, and this processor there. What you're seeing is an increasing level of abstraction as we move up the development chain. If you think about when logic was first implemented as programmable logic arrays, people did design these things using logic equations. Yeah. They get too complicated, so you can't use logic equations, but you can then do kind of schematic entry of AND gates and OR gates and D-type flip-flops and such like, and that'll get you away as the devices grow. And that's then obviously when HDLs came in, like VHDL and Verilog, and you can describe your design in that level. Now these devices are so big and so complex that to actually, you've got to take that next step into the next level of abstraction, which is using tools like HLS and mapping them in. And it goes really well on that journey, because if you look at that journey where they put processors in there and they've got FPGAs in, and they've got, well, it's not really an FPGA, it's a heterogeneous system on chip, and you've got programmable logic in there. then what you really want to do is be able to sort of optimize. You want to system optimize in compiling, because some things are good in the processor.
Yeah.
Some things are much better in programmable logic, and what you really want to do is be able to create your application all in one language and then kind of port it across, having worked out whether it's functional or not. You want to optimize it, and that's where it's heading. And you can see that kind of with the Xilinx flow, from the original devices to the Zincs, and now to the new devices, the ACAP. They're really kind of moving through and moving up those levels of abstraction. That said, before everyone jumps on me and shouts at me, VHDL, because I get a lot of trouble when I say that. I get a lot of trouble on the internet when I say HLS is kind of the way forward.
Yeah.
And it is, because it's kind of like the compiler war. The compiler wars between C and assembler, when people they say, well, you can't get a compiler that can compile as good as I can write my assembler.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for a while.
Yeah.
There's still some overhead with using HLS, and there's still a bit of a learning curve with using HLS. But give it time, and you're going to end up in the exact same situation that you are now, where very few people can produce assemblers efficiently as the C compiler can. And we're on that.
So it's an iteration. It's an evolution.
It's an evolution.
Yeah.
It's an iteration.
But obviously there are downsides to FPGAs versus ASICs, and sort of. Let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages as we move into the future, because obviously it depends on the application.
Yeah, you're right. It depends on your application, what you want to do. I think actually the barriers closing now actually between FPGA and ASICs, because the FPGA, the programmable logic world, is so there's so much capability in there. But ASICs, if you're doing high volumes or customized things, then you might want to consider an ASIC. If you're doing, when cost comes into it as well, it's an engineering balance at the end of it. Everything in life, it becomes down to a trade-off and an engineering balance.
True.
Everybody has to compromise until everybody's equally unhappy. That's the real art of engineering. Is compromise. It's not anything else really. But you have the for FPGAs, you have the flexibility and that programmability. You've got that in the field, and particularly today, as algorithms advance so quickly, particularly if you're working in sort of like the machine learning world and such like, the last thing you want to do is put a network in your ASIC and then find out that actually things are moving on, or that there's a slightly better one. Whereas with an FPGA, you can deploy it, you can change it in the field, you can redo it, and the fact that there were those considerations about power, but the modern devices are actually quite power efficient for what they are.
Okay, so with FPGAs, I think programmable hardware, it's kind of mapping into the notion of software is kind of taking over the world and eating up the world. And it's kind of encroaching into hardware.
It's on the same path.
Yeah.
We're all on the same path. I think. It's like I say, it's levels of abstraction that get higher and higher up, and people, that's where the trend seems to be in industry too.
So you mentioned AI. So the application areas where obviously you've been working in computer vision, AI is another area. What sort of other domains? Because FPGAs are finding their way into everything now.
They're in everything. Well, they have been for a while. I think it's just people beginning to be, beginning to be aware of them. So they're in a lot of areas such as broadcast, high-end comms, high-end communication. Digital broadcast. The military defence and aerospace world. They live off FPGAs really. There's a few ASICs about, but mostly there's a lot of FPGAs in there. Space obviously uses quite a lot. Industrial, scientific, and medical. I think the only one that's really is still breaking through is more the consumer, the low cost side, but that's rapidly increasing as well. So
do you think it's kind of going completely in that direction? Are the ASICs going to go away completely?
I don't think they'll go away completely.
Because there's still applications.
There's still applications for them. There's still what people want them. And I'm slightly biased as an FPGA guy anyway. So if you talk to an ASIC guy, he'll be like, no, he was completely wrong. It's this. I'm an FPGA guy. I have one tool. It's an FPGA. It's like a hammer. If you give a guy a hammer, everything's a nail, isn't it?
That's right.
It really is. But
I guess horses for courses. And so there will be these parallel lines of evolution with these kinds of, these kind of ideas about chip design. Now, let's talk quickly about the density of, because the silicon itself is kind of, Moore's law and all that. How does that going to infringe on FPGAs, you think?
Well, I think they're getting down. I think the next generation, the first one chip. I was in Los Angeles last week actually, lucky enough to see see the first one actually, one of the first ones up and running on the way, and that's running at 7 nanometers. You know, I mean, the other ones are, I think the previous family from that at 14 nanometers, something like that. So it's a race, and they're getting smaller. They get more, you know, they get much more capability. But I think they think a lot more about what you actually put in the silicon, because as somebody says, you know, I think 7 nanometer is the most expensive
and all sorts of things.
Somebody phrased it well. I think it's the most expensive real estate in the world. Apparently.
They, you know, it's like kind of a diminishing returns, right? A bit based on
it begins to get very expensive to use the latest nodes, and that's a benefit for another benefit for FPGAs. Obviously, you don't have to go through that lessons with learning to use that node.
You've been around a long time in this game. You know, in the embedded world or any kind of technology, the tools evolve as well at a rapid rate. So, how have tools kept up with, let's say, the chip manufacturers and the density of chips? Have they kind of kept up with that?
I think they've kept up pretty well, actually. I mean, I think if you take a look at you know, like Faraday, you know, when that comes out, that's supposed to zinc the MPSOC type families and the large Vertex families. I mean, that's a fantastic tool. It was a little bit ropey when it first came out, but you know, it was a very again. The designers is a very brave thing, because they decided to kind of stop and just focus on their new 7 series devices going forwards, and that meant that they didn't have to support all the legacy, all the hacks, all the fixes, and everything that had been put in for the legacy architectures. I think the tools have kept up, and I think you see that push to the again. I still think you see that push to kind of block level design using HLS, system optimizing compiler. You know, these days, you know, with the Pink framework, we can use Python as well to access the programmable. We can use Python to access the programmable logic as well. So it gets all really.
So other languages like Python are coming in as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't compile it into logic gates, but you can easily make Python access the functionality that you just put into the hardware. And that's really quite cool when you start playing with libraries like OpenCV, if you've got accelerated OpenCV functions in the hardware.
Do you think AI will make a dent in this as the complexity of case code?
I think AI will.
Yeah.
I'm still yet to work out where AI is on the hype cycle. You know.
So
I think it's one of those things at the moment that a lot of people are talking about it, but actually very few people actually doing a huge amount with it. I think a lot of people are thinking about what they want to do with it. But I still think it's still a fair way. A lot of the mainstream stuff's still a fair way off.
Because I know AI has been used in things like car design or the chassis of the car, you know, and the AI has come up with a completely different idea which no human being would have ever thought about. You know, when it comes to strength and, you know, weight and all sorts of things. So perhaps that may, because it's all about complexity and be able to handle that. You know, can an individual handle, how much can an individual handle?
It is, but I think that's a kind of different sort of AI to what you're perhaps likely to see in the, you know, in the programmable logic world. I don't know, you know, you're seeing a lot of sort of convolutional neural network sort of image based. I think you'll see a lot of sort of other neural network type AI inferences and such like. I think that's a slightly different.
Are you talking about the application of them?
The application.
I'm talking about the actual developing a tool that will assist the designer.
That would be an interesting one.
Yeah,
that'd be an interesting one, but I think that's probably still a little.
Because it could be a library, it could be, you know, iterations, because AI learns through data.
It does, it's just statistics.
Just refining
an existing design. It's just statistics, really. If I give this input, what's the likelihood that I get this input out?
And what's the optimum input and output sort of thing. Okay, interesting. All right, so let's move on then. Let's talk about, because you've done quite a lot. You've read 250 articles I've seen here. You've read 250 articles on FPGAs, I guess. So can you tell me what are Microjet Chronicles anyway? What was what's the name and what is it?
It's the background there. So that's it. So I think today actually it's about 290. I think I sent you an old thing. So I think I'm about 2 off.
So you're still writing them?
Yeah, still writing them weekly. Yeah, so it's about 2. I'm about 2 off 300, I think.
Wow.
Or 1 or 2 off 300.
You must really love FPGAs.
I really do. But you know what the really amazing thing is? They've had about 20 million plus views.
Yeah, that's right.
And some of them, and I'm not making this up, some of them have actually had over 1.5 million views on their own.
Wow.
And the one or two, not many of them, but one or two of them that have, you would have never believed they were going to get that. When you kind of wrote it, you kind of like, really, that subject. I mean, one of them is on test patterns, generating VGA test patterns.
Maybe a lot of people are using test patterns.
And you sit there and you think, I never thought that I'd get that would be so popular.
Yeah.
Other ones you write, you think this is going to be really popular, and they just sort of bob along like the other ones do. But it's a really interesting. I mean, so
what? First, before you tell, what was the impetus behind this?
So I was just going to come back. So this is a long and boring story. So feel free to edit this to your heart's content.
Okay.
And it really is a long story.
Yeah.
So about 2010, I was working for Airbus in Astrum. I was one of their lead engineers, responsible engineers on a satellite program. Kind of at the stage in this program, we kind of debussed from. I worked in Stevenage actually. We kind of the project was all more or less in Portsmouth. And it's a good job they can't find me for what I'm about to say actually. But the clean room was quite, the testing was all going on in the clean room and everything.
Okay.
And it's quite slow, when you work in a clean room, because you can't do things as an engineer, a trained on flight equipment, a trained operator's got to do it, and they'd be up and down as you're doing tests. So, but you needed to be there to facilitate it and make things move, keep things moving forwards. So one day I was sat there and I got some time to go. So I'm going to write an article on how to design state machines for high reliability. So I did. Sort of like, it wasn't it wasn't like a scientific paper, it was just a kind of, hey, you want to design a state machine with FPGA, these are the kind of options you've got, here's a decision tree to help you make the choices and such like. And then having wrote it, I thought, this would be cool to get published, and I'll get it published. And I was aware of the Xilinx magazine called the XL Journal, so I thought, well, I'll just chance my arm and downloaded their template and sent it in to their editor, who's now a great friend of mine, who's at Mental Graphics, Mike Santorini, and he's a really nice guy. And he received this article and said, "Oh wow, this is amazing!" And I just figured he was being nice about it. Yeah. But anyway, they ran it in the XL Journal, and then they kind of syndicated it to E! Times and such like. And it became a really popular article. I think it became like the number 1 or number 2 most read article that year. Okay. In it, and that kind of.
So that kind of gives you
that kind of kickstarted me to think, well, maybe I should write about this stuff as well, because I enjoy sort of. I've always wanted to enjoy sort of sharing and talking about these things with other people. So I did that, and then I started contributing regular pieces. Mike said, hey, if you write me anything, I'll publish it. And it was like quarterly published, so it's like, I can write 1 article a quarter. It's only 2,000 words, So I wrote a lot of. If you go back look through the articles, you'll find very few of these. From about 2010 onwards, I think there's one where I didn't have at least one article sort of talking about FPGA design. So I covered a wide range of things, like how to design it into your hardware, how to do power estimation, the Fourier, how to design filters, Fourier transforms, I just sat down and wrote what interested me, what I thought about it. And then there was it's a long story.
Okay.
So then there was a website started, kind of a joint venture between Xilinx and E! Times called All Programmable Planet. And the editor of that was a guy called Max Maxfield, who was a really close friend of mine. But at that point in time, I didn't really know him. And he emailed me and said, "Hey, Mike at Xilinx said you're great. I've run a few of your articles, and they're really quite. They've syndicated a few, and they go down well. Would you mind writing about it?" So I thought, yeah, I can. I'll do that. So I wrote a lot of columns for them on sort of VHDL, so the basics of VHDL. So I ran some columns called Ask Adam VHDL, and sort of wrote all about what entities are, architectures are, signals, variables, a whole lot of stuff, and a whole lot of other things. And around that time, actually, I got my first Zinc board, so I wrote a bring up with a Zinc board and a few other type of projects as well. But it was all. I mean, that lasted about 12 months or so. And then, for whatever reason, they decided that the partnership on this website there was a range of them. There was All Programmable Planet, there was an analog one, there was a connector, there was a high-speed design one, and they all kind of went away around the same sort of time. But Steve Liebson at Xilinx was just starting the Xilinx XL Daily blog. And he sent me a Microjet board. So a Microjet board is a system on module from Avnet, and it has pretty much all of the I/O broken out, but it's got the core of the FPGA in there. So it's got a It's got a 7020 zinc on it, or a 7010, depending upon which one you buy. There's the DDR memory. There's an SD card. There's USB, Ethernet type stuff. There's everything you need to kind of. You can plug it in, power it over USB. So there's everything you need to kind of get it up and running as a little system on its own. And then you can plug it into other cards. And it's actually a really good module for. I'm a big believer in the SOM concept because people can't design something for the cost and the risk that you can plug these into and get them going, and it allows you to focus on your thing early on. So yes, so Steve sent me one of these, and very cleverly he sent it in a. I mean, I think he sent them to quite a few people actually on the All Programmable Planet sort of thing. But he got like a box, and he got our photos, and he got some proper labels made up, and these boards came through in this nice box with our faces on it. It's like the Adam Taylor Microjet edition. In fact, I've still got it to this day. Sort of stuff. And he sent me this, and I'm like, oh well, thank you very much. And he's like, well, I'm just about to launch a new blog. Because if you want to write something, I'd love to publish it. So then I thought, well, I better, you've sent me this. I'll give you something in return. So I wrote a few. And I really wasn't intending it to turn into.
But you got 250. You could easily compile a book now.
So I have 2 books that are compiled out of it.
Okay.
For the first, so it's been running. So I mean, I didn't intend to write all these. I just intended to write 5, 6, maybe, and then
so
stop.
You found another passion.
But it just kind of kept on going, and literally for the last, we had a bit of a break last year because there were some changes that went off as to where the blog was hosted. So we had a bit of a change last year, at the beginning of last year, but it's been running for 5 years. Actually, in September it'll be 6 years that it's been running for, and I've produced a blog a week on how to design FPGAs.
So you must get a lot of love from the community then.
I do. I get quite a lot of love from the community. It always amazes me that people read them. Actually, it's quite nice because a lot of people reach out to me and say, "Oh, thank you. I was just looking for how to do that." Or, it's really quite nice when people come back to
And you did it just purely out of, just out of interest, right? There was no other motive for it.
No other motive out of it. Just out of love of FPGAs.
Right, because writing comes from teaching. You obviously seem to be a passionate person who wants to communicate your ideas and thoughts.
It is.
So have you thought about or do you teach?
So I do. I do a lot of training for VHDL for FPGA design. So I do a lot of work with a company in Germany called PLC2.
I was going to ask you that because that's part of my thing. How's that going working in Germany and with German engineers?
Pretty good actually. Yeah, it's pretty good. The PLC2 they're like a family really. They're really nice bunch of people. They're really quite good. So I do a lot of. In fact, I'm doing some training for them in a couple of weeks. Actually, unusually on this time it's on a training course I've created. So I've created a coming back to the teaching thing. So obviously my background is in high reliability, FPGA design, defence and aerospace type stuff. And so I've actually created a course about how to design mission critical FPGAs. So it's really kind of like a 3-day course looking at. Starts out looking at the environmental challenges, temperature, radiation, shape, rattle, and roll, and then touches a little bit on some of the standards like 254 and 61508. But then it's really looking at kind of the design techniques that you can use as an engineer, and it's there to really teach you as an engineer the design techniques that you might want to consider for your next application. I don't want to teach you. It's not about to teach you how to work within the process of like 61508 or 254 or whatever like that, because that's far too specific and sort of hands time. But it's actually just to teach you, how to design good mission critical FPGAs. So there's a big section on state machines, on IOs, on all sorts of things. And so I'm really actually looking forward to doing that. Obviously, I do a lot with companies like Hackster as well. So I've done some Hackster tutorials. I've done some work with and like I said, I'm quite popular, quite well received in the community. So I'm an ARM innovator for the FPGA side of things.
Right. So what do you think about ARM being bought by SoftBank? Does it make any difference?
It doesn't really make any difference to me, to be honest.
Right. I mean, you travel around a lot. Where are the hot spots? I mean, obviously Silicon Valley is big. There's a lot of work. Innovation there.
There's a lot of innovation.
There must be other hot spots around. I mean, how's the UK going?
The UK is okay.
Yeah.
The UK is okay for business. I mean, the US is absolutely booming at the moment.
Yeah.
If I get so many emails from people or companies saying, can you help us with this project? And then we go down a little bit of a discussion route and find out that it's a defence project, and because I'm in the UK, you can't
do it.
So yeah, it's the US is booming. UK is quite good, but it's a little. The UK is always a little slow and insular. You know, we're a bit. Insular is not the right word. We're also a little slow, a little risk averse to adopting things. You know, because in a lot of our companies.
Well, that's just the English mindset, isn't
it? It is English mindset. I think I must have not got. I think I must have not got the English gene, because I'm much more of a kind of a risk taker.
Yeah.
Kind of, well, you know what? If we can do it faster, doing it this way, it's just going to be good. Let's try it doing it that way. But
so what about Brexit? Is that going to affect the technology sector at all?
I don't think so.
Well,
I mean, apart from the fact that.
But a lot of the car companies are moving their offices over, or their factories.
But they were moving them anyway, because they've got a. That's not Brexit related, because the EU's just agreed a free trade agreement with Japan.
Yeah.
And so they were moving them anyway. I think a lot of companies are using Brexit as an excuse, to be honest.
Really.
But I've not really seen any. I've not seen anything in my technological. But having said that, most of my clients are actually most of my clients are outside the UK.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you mentioned that America's going off. What about skill shortages? You talk to a lot of people. What's the word on the street when it comes to, because with firmware, it's not a sexy thing to go into. A lot of people don't go into it.
It's hard
to find a shortage.
It's hard to find good engineers.
Yeah,
it is really difficult.
So what is it? So let's talk about that. So what's in your mind a definition of a good engineer?
You're right. But the thing is, I'm such a bastard, I wouldn't even employ myself.
No, because everyone has their own view. When you've been a hiring manager, you've hired people, right?
Do you know what you're looking at? I mean, and this sounds really trite, because everybody else says it. Do you know what you're looking for? You're looking for the passion.
Okay.
You're looking for that energy and that passion and that enthusiasm. I've never been a big one for looking at box ticking and saying, I want a guy that can do this. We're going to be working on this skill, computer vision, but I want somebody that's going to have all these skills. If somebody comes in and they've got a lot of experience with FPGAs in general or embedded systems, and they're keen and enthusiastic, they'll be able to learn. They'll be able to learn it, and if they're that keen and enthusiastic, they'll pick it up. They'll pick it up.
So how do you define? I mean, how do you identify that? Let's say, I
think it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do, but you can see from talking to people. So hopefully you're talking to me. You can say this guy's a geek. He loves FPGAs.
Yeah, well, we're both.
He kind of lives in. I live and breathe it. I must spend 100 hours a week plus.
Yeah, right.
Working with FPGAs in one way.
So that hooks into people's hobbies as well. So that's an indication.
You can kind of see. You can kind of see it. Do they have a dev board? Do they experiment? Do they read? Do they read? Do they go away and read on the internet? But it's not do they read my blog? But do they actually go away and read other? Do they read about things and keep up, or are they just kind of? I'm going to turn up at 9, I'm going to write a bit of code, I'm going to leave at 5 and such like.
But those people are quite rare, I think, because, the universities are churning out these people, and these people are entering university because they think they can get a degree, get a particular position and so on. And they come out with these degrees, but they don't have that passion.
No, you have to find that. You have to kind of inspire it, and that's part of one of the things. I think I was quite lucky being an engineer. So my story of being an engineer is again long and boring stuff, but I should never have been an engineer. If you talk to any of my schools, if you talk to my school teachers and such like, and I keep meaning, I've still got them on my school reports, I keep meaning to dig out the sort of the science and technology grades, because I did appallingly badly at school, and then I went to college and did sort of, because obviously in the UK you leave school at kind of 16, and then you go and do your A-levels.
That's right.
So my A-levels were actually in history, geography and general studies, but I failed them all. Well, I didn't really fail. I think I got D's and an A or something, but the reality is I was in the pub for 2 years. And because a lot of my friends had not gone to college, they'd gone to they got jobs, they'd gone and got trades, and I'd gone to, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll go to college. Actually, I did. I had a vague idea that I wanted to join the Air Force.
Right.
Obviously, I'd watched Top Gun. Top Gun was popular around the time when I was picking all this. So I was like, I want to be a fighter pilot.
Okay.
And I really did bad. I really failed. So then I thought, well, what am I going to do? So this is, like I said, long and boring story. So I thought, I'll join the Air Force. And I went to talk to the FI, and I wish today that I knew the name of the lady that I actually talked to, because I wasn't paying I was paying attention, but I just never quite got a name. And so I started down this career path of joining the Air Force, and they said, well, what interests you? So I want to be a pilot. But no, you're not going to be a pilot. So we got talking about engineering, because I want to be an officer. We got talking about engineering. I said, engineering that looks really quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then she said, well, you've got to have an engineering degree, and you've got to have, and I thought, well, I don't have that. So we were talking about it. She said, well, you don't have that, do you? She said, but Sheffield Hallam University, so I grew up in a town called Sheffield. So Sheffield Hallam University do a access course for people that don't have an engineering background if they want to go on and do an engineering degree. So this lady was very kind. She phoned up the university for me. She arranged an appointment the next day for me to go see the university. And have a chat with them.
She was your saviour.
She was my saviour.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you her name, which is really quite bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went and talked to the university, and they said, come and if you want to do it, you can come and do it. So I went and signed on for it. So it turned a 4-year engineering degree into a 5-year engineering degree, essentially this first year on it. So I did that first year, which involved all the maths, the mechanics, the electronics, the chemical. Because it kind of covered everything, depending on what you wanted to do in the engineering suite.
It's foundation year.
It's like a foundation year. It covered everything, and you needed 70% to pass and move. Well, you needed 70% to pass and move on to a degree. I think it was a slightly lower mark to move on to a HND, HNC, and I managed to get 71%. So I literally scraped through by the skin of my teeth, because I never enjoyed the chemical side of it, the chemistry side of it, and the mechanical side of it. It was never really my forte. But I really enjoyed the electronics side, so I went on and did an electronics degree, and then sort of 4 years later
But was it a vocational degree? Like it was hands-on, for a lot of hands-on stuff?
It wasn't too hands-on. It was actually, I'm a really big, Sheffield Hallam was, I'm a really big, in fact I sit on their industrial advisory board, and every time I go there I was like, you've given me everything, you took a chance on me and you gave me everything, gave me everything in the world. So I can never thank them enough. But it was a mixture between, it got a lot of good academics, and it got a lot of kind of sort of people who've been in the field, people who actually worked as engineers as well, teaching. Yeah. So a couple of good teachers there, John Rowe and such like were really quite instrumental and Tim Mulroy were really quite instrumental and really good people in sort of teaching. I graduated sort of 5 years later. Well, you
graduated with a
so I got a first class honours degree in the end, which I don't think anybody would ever have thought I'd have got, but it did instill in me that kind of passion. And then I went to my first job, and we'd been using FPGA. John Rowe got me quite into FPGAs while I was at Sheffield Hallam, and my first job was designing FPGAs. So that kind of just started this.
So you got lucky.
This love and this passion. Look, I've been really lucky to have met a lot of people in my time, which is why I actually try. Which is why. And I'm not always the best at it, but if people message me or say, "Can I have some help?" Which is why I always try and go out of my way to help people or talk to them, because people were lucky to me at the time, were helpful to me at the times when I needed it. So it's good to kind of give back and try and inspire other people, really.
The Raspberry Pi was started on the same premise as the BBC Micro, right? To get more people, young people, into electronics and into firmware. Do you think that's working, and do you think there's enough?
I think it's working to some extent.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem we've got, particularly in the UK, because I don't know a huge amount, but I'm guessing it's around the rest of the world. But in the UK, engineering is perceived very badly.
Yeah.
If you
it's
say
not sexy.
But if you say you're an engineer, nobody knows what it is. Or they assume that you're working with a rag or an oil wrench or something.
Right.
Or a mechanic. You see it for perfect. Like a machine breaks, a vending machine breaks, or something breaks. And it's a sign like engineer called. Yeah. But it's not a protected term. It's not a protected term. Engineering is not a protected term in the UK. So actually, I think there's a big push in. There's a big push in STEM to get people to do it, and there's a lot of STEM ambassadors. But I actually think one of the other ways that we can make it better as well is actually to educate the teachers, because the STEM ambassadors are there for an afternoon, a day, or something, not very often. But actually, there's a big part in actually educating teachers and saying, do you know what, teachers, you know what an accountant is, you know what a policeman is, you know what a lawyer is. this is what an engineer is. This is what an engineer does. Generally, they, unlike me, who walks in jeans and t-shirt, they wear a suit, they go to the office, they do really complicated things. Your entire world is made by an engineer.
But I think the salaries don't reflect the appreciation either, because I was an engineer in the UK for a long time, and I think
salaries are shocking.
Absolutely shocking.
Salaries are shocking.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I've got a friend of mine who works for the NMI, National Microelectronics Institute. She was, and we both started as graduates at Raytheon actually, and we were just saying the other day that 20 years ago you'd find an advert for a experienced FPGA engineer or an experienced engineer, and their number would be between sort of mid-40s to mid-50s, say maybe. And so in that day, early 2000s, 40, 50,000, you could have a reasonable standard of living on that. Now fast forward 20 years, you've got the same cost of living that governments ignore. Yeah. You've got house prices that are just and you've still got the same job. You've still got the same jobs. You've still got the same prices. But this is actually why most people actually. Well, there's a few reasons why, but this is actually why most people get some experience, 10, 15 years experience. They think, what, I'm going to be my own consultant. I want to be right. Because that way you get if you do it right, you get a better income. Or in the worst case, you make the same income, but you get better tax benefits, and you can actually you times your own when you work.
That's right. The contracting sector is quite big here. I'm just going to step back, go back to what we were talking about, trying to attract more people into the industry. I follow the maker community as well. And they've kind of made great strides, open source hardware and open source software and so on. And also that links also into some of these bigger companies who are kind of struggling to hire enough people because they're expanding and there's just not enough people coming out of uni, so they kind of I guess reducing the requirements for a degree and so on, but basing more on people's interests and so on. And if you combine that with the maker community and access to all these tools and stuff, do you think that might help to?
I think it could. I do quite a lot in the maker community for the Hackster projects and such like that. I do, and that's all to try and show people that FPGAs are accessible. They're not difficult. They're not difficult to use. You can get your hands on them and you can get them up and running.
So talk about that. How do you start? Let's say if you wanted to, say you're an engineer, and you just want to get into FPGAs. What's the first thing you do?
The first thing you really got to do is pick the language, VHDL or Verilog.
And how would you distinguish which one to pick?
So I'm a VHDL guy. I think that's a very evil question.
Okay.
Because it's like the language. There were actual VH. I'm sure you're old enough. You can remember this VH. I've got a. Bizarrely enough, I wrote a course for Element 14, and that comes out sometime soon about languages and VHDL or Verilog and how to program FPGAs. And in that, I was mentioning the language was. I was like, a lot of you guys are probably too young to remember, but late 90s, early 2000s, there was real language what was going on.
Yeah.
You pick it generally depends upon where you are. A lot of the West Coast US and stuff and Asia is very Verilog specific. Okay. Some of the East Coast of the US is VHDL, and Europe's quite predominantly VHDL.
What is the difference? It's just a language, right?
There is a difference. Verilog's horrible, VHDL's beautiful.
Oh, okay.
But if you ask to be a Verilog person, the two differences is basically VHDL sprang from the US Department of Defense. It's very based around the Ada language. It's very it's very tightly typed as well.
Yeah.
Which is really quite good if you're doing aerospace and military type stuff. Yeah. Verilog didn't. Verilog kind of sprung up from some.
So Verilog C, is it?
Kind of like C. It came from really Cadence, and I can't remember.
Rather than Pascal.
And Pascal, yeah. And it's a lot less loosely typed. So it's a lot less verbose. So it's a lot more productive than VHDL. But you do need a linter or something. So they're both perfectly fine. I actually can do both. I just prefer VHDL. I just prefer VHDL because it's a language.
So let's say VHDL.
So you pick a language. You pick a language and then get used to the constructs and getting your head around. And there's some great tutorials on the web about how to learn VHDL or Verilog if you want to.
So should somebody buy an evaluation board or?
Yeah, I was going to come to that. Once you pick the language, you've got to get your head around the language constructs because it's not a normal software language. So in software, you're very much in the sequential world. One thing executes after another, after another, after another. You've got multiple functions. You can call functions and such like. Whereas in the programmable logic world, everything executes in parallel, unless you're in a process or a function, in which case it executes sequentially in that function, because you're creating depth as opposed to running.
Okay.
So you have to get, and that's an interesting thing to get your head around. And you have to understand that there's not all the, like in software, and you can do it these days with synthesis stuff, but you can't do in software there's division, so there's hardware dividers and floating point dividers already in there in the processor system. There's not in an FPGA. If you want that, you have to create it, or you have to write it in such a way that the synthesis tool can infer it, and then that might take a lot of logic, or you might have to go away and think about it and then kind of customize. So you have to get your head, you have to learn a little bit, and it's not difficult. I always tell people, if I can do it, anyone can do it, really. So you have to learn that language and get a little bit of it, and then download. The best way to do it is, most of the vendors these days, they have a free web pack of the tools.
Oh, really? Free?
Yeah, I mean, years ago, tools used to be quite hard to get hold of.
Very hard.
These days, you can get, and they will support some really quite mid to high end devices. They'll support for without needing a license. So get a web, go grab the Xilinx Vivado web pack, download that. It comes with the not only the editors and such like, but also a simulator. Comes with a high level synthesis.
Okay, so you don't need hardware initially.
It comes with a simulator, so you can. Because that's one of the first things you should do in your FPGA design, is you should get used to simulating. But then you want to put it on hardware, so you should get a dev board. Yeah. And there's a lot of dev boards about, that are really quite good. There's the the Mini Z, the Avnet Mini Z is really quite good, and it's only is really, really perfect actually. It's only like $89 or something.
Right. Okay.
There's the Digilent do the RT boards, and they've got a range of them, so you can have the Arctics, the Spartan, or the Zinc versions of it. And they all run around sort of, again, similar, sort of $90 to sort of $200, depending upon the size of the device you have on it and the various flavour of it, or a core board, or a digital core board. There's a range of little low-end sort of boards that you can do. I'm a big fan actually at the moment of the Ultra 96. I think the Ultra 96 is probably the best. One of the best boards out there. That's a little bit more expensive. It's about $250. But it's got it's got the Zinc MP sock on it, so it's a really, really meaty, really capable device on there. And then start experimenting. Go take a look at the projects I've created. Go take a look at the blog. I'm being set very self-promotionally. Go take a look.
So tell us about that. Where can they go?
So they're on Hackster.io.
Hackster, okay, .io. Hackster.io, guys.
And if you just Google my name,
Google Adam Taylor.
You'll find it.
I'll put some links under the video anyway. But so talk about so that's where you start, right? So experiment, use a simulator, get a dev board, and do some work. Is there any particular examples that you particularly have a passion for? You could recommend?
Obviously, the first one, you want a Hello World program.
Okay.
And obviously in software, your first Hello World is Hello World. Yeah. In hardware, your first Hello World is generally blinking an LED or something, something like that. And you can kind of make it, you can kind of grow it incrementally from that. Can I blink an LED? Yeah, you can blink an LED. Can I dim an LED? Can I change the intensity? Can I put a pulse width modulated output through the LED? Okay. And you can build up from there. How do I communicate? Well, RS-232 is still quite a popular method of doing communications. Or like these days with your laptop, you'll use a USB to RS-232 communication. Yeah. But can you create a simple UART? With the same. Right. And obviously, the great thing about it these days is, all the vendors have got massive IP libraries, so you can build some really quite complicated stuff without ever touching too much of a line of VHDL or Verilog. You can put these IPs in there, and you can connect it all together using like the AXI interface. Right. And you can get video streams up and running, audio streams up and running. All these things are really quite simple without having to do too much.
I might do it myself.
Yeah, pretty much. Just give it a try. But it's really quite accessible. It is really quite accessible, and there's a lot you can do and get started. But generally, what you find is once you start on down that road of I'll blink an LED, you want to do more, and you just kind of want to do more. I'll build that UART. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll put a little softcode processor in there and get it to do this. So I'll buy some PMOD type interfaces which have got sensors on them. I'll connect these in, and then it's just like the pie. You just start building and following away, and sort of creating solutions.
I think they've got a Pi Hat, which is an FPGA now. I think
they do. There's a Vido. I think there's a Vido one. Oh no, that's the Ultra 96 boards one. But yeah, there's quite a few. There's quite a few about. And actually, if you get the right FPGA. A lot of the FPGAs actually, they've got the shields, like the Arduino type shields.
Yeah.
They've got connectors on for those, so you can drop on the Arduino shields. And there's another little interface in there called the PMOD interface, which is a little like dual inline 20-pin connector type thing, and it's a standard. So that's quite good. And if you look at boards, actually one board I didn't mention is the Pink board.
The Pink board?
Spelled, but not pink. It's spelled PYNQ. And that's comes from Xilinx. It's a Xilinx open initiative, and it's open source to put Python with the Zinc, so with the heterogeneous sock. So essentially the Python runs on the ARM-A9 or the R53 or the A53. And then you have this concept of overlays, which is essentially programmable logic designs in the programmable logic, and the Python can actually interact with these from the Python program, and so it can rapidly accelerate the programmable logic. So in one example, actually, I'm talking next week at Developer Week in New York City, and my talk is I went from sort of 2 frames per second to 70 frames per second without changing my hardware, without changing my without changing the underlying hardware. Yeah. How did I do it? And the answer is, well, I was using a Pink board, and I was running the algorithm just on the processors initially, and then I used one of the acceleration overlays that are available to actually accelerate some functions from Python into the programmable logic, and then back again. You get 70 frames per second. Actually, you get more than that. You get about depending upon the resolution and the image size, we could get for about 10,000 frames per second by using the programmable logic in place of software. So it's really, those boards are great because they not only do they open up this kind of, if you're used to using like the Python type thing, you can use Python, and you can just use the existing library of overlays that are available from Xilinx and other third-party contributors. You can use that to get yourself going and get going. Mm. You can also then use that you've then got a really good dev board as well, so you can then use that to develop your own dev board, or you can start writing VHDL on it and say, well, I've got this kind of going, but wouldn't it be great to know about how that programmable logic works? So let's start blinking an LED, let's start doing an LED, and it's... so
talking about that leads me on to edge computing, I guess, with IoT and all that. Now, I mean, obviously a lot of IoT devices are very small, they just do one thing, whatever. Do you think there's a case for an FPGA in there?
I think there's a lot of cases with FPGAs. I think you're seeing a lot of FPGAs at the edge actually because they're really deterministic. Yeah. And that's a really important thing for a lot of applications.
Speed, I guess.
They're deterministic. They're fast. Yeah. They've got good security features as you can implement, because a lot of things at the edge, you've got to protect them from people tampering, security, unauthorized access. So security becomes really, and it's not just the sort of the data security, but it's actually the physical security of how to stop somebody tampering with it and making.
What about the cost equation though with that? Is it still viable?
I think the cost is. Yeah, I think the cost is. You see, there's a lot of examples where the cost optimized portfolio are being used in industrial solutions, in the edge, in edge-based applications, and that's. I think you'll see more of them going. I know certainly that if you pay much attention to kind of like the announcements from Xilinx and such like, they're doing their ACAP. The really changes. It's not really an FPGA anymore. It's a really advanced compute platform, and they've got a whole range of edge-based devices that give really high performance with really good optimized power. I don't know what the cost of it is. I don't know if anybody does, but
I guess the cost will go down over time.
It's like everything over time. But I think there's a big range for FPGAs. I think the biggest, the edge, and obviously the data center is the other area.
So let's talk about let's say people out there who might be listening or watching this who are kind of in a bit of a conundrum, they're a bit of a crossroads where, they're at the beginning of their career and so on. Do you recommend they go into FPGA design and become an FPGA designer?
Yeah, I would recommend they do that. But You see, variety is one thing you do learn is variety is the spice of life. So
Yeah.
I mean, FPGAs is the core that runs throughout my sort of career. You know, I've always done it, and I've always had my own side of. I've always done it as a hobby and as an evening. And I had my own consultancy company, but you know, in the jobs that I've held, I've designed boards. I've been chief engineers, responsible engineer. I've progressed up the management chain as well.
Yeah.
But I always managed to, and made a conscious effort actually to keep myself technical, because I knew that one day I wanted to go. It was kind of a bit of an ego thing, can I be the chief engineer? Can I get to this? Can I get to that? But you know, having done that, actually, my first love is very much the technical side of things. So yeah, they should go into it, and they should follow that. Obviously, the biggest piece of advice you can give anyone is that their career is in their own hands.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, while your line managers and companies and such like, we'll try to look out for you. And generally, I've always tried to look out for the best needs of anybody in my team, and make sure their career needs align. You have to remember that they can only align with what projects the company has available and what needs the company has available. So never feel nervous about moving around or leaving companies to take the next option.
Can you give any input as to where the hotspots are, where people maybe maybe they're thinking about going to a different country, whatever? You travel a lot, you know what we talked about it earlier about the US and so on. Where have you seen more activity? The UK, obviously, in Europe, I guess there's some activity.
I see a lot
in Asia, I guess.
I see a lot in Asia, a lot in the US. Obviously, like we're saying, is booming. You know, Europe's the UK is doing quite well. It's got a lot of interest in a lot of needs for people in FPGAs. Europe's really always been quite hungry for engineers as well.
Yeah, and they do value their engineers a little
bit
more.
They do value their engineers a lot more than they do in the UK.
Yeah,
but it's all about, you kind of have to make yourself marketable, don't you? That'd be my.
So talk about that. So how does an engineer? Because you know engineers, they're introverts.
They are introverts. So it's really funny, you know. I mean, you know, it's quite simple. Write blogs, share projects. Contribute to the community, you know, and you don't have to do it every week like I do, but it's quite a useful thing when you go to people when you're looking for jobs, and they'll say, well, actually, I do know about this, and I have done this, because actually, if you look at this project here, if you look at this project here, if you look at this project here, there's some, you know, here's evidence of it working, and obviously you get name awareness. I don't do a lot of advertising. I get a lot of people come in saying, We'd like you to help. We'd like some help. So it's worked well for me. Obviously, there's always kind of a bias in what works well. People always think what works well for them works well for everybody because it worked well for them. Yeah, but it's kind of, you know, that.
But it's driven from your passion, though.
It is. It's driven from my. But I mean, the other thing is, you know, we're in the IET building, you know, the Institute of Engineering and Technology building, and I'm a big fan of professional registration as an engineer.
Okay.
So I'm a chartered engineer. I have been since 2004.
What does it take to be a chartered engineer? Registered? I mean, does you have to sit exams, or do you have to just apply?
No, just
a membership fee or something?
No, well, yeah, there's a membership fee.
Okay.
So there's always a membership fee.
There's a membership fee.
So you don't have to sit exams, because it's based around the fact that you have, and I'll probably get fired from anybody watching this video for, no, you explained it slightly wrong. So these days, you need to have a master's degree, or be able to demonstrate learning to a master's degree level, and that's very important, because that doesn't mean you need to hold a master's degree, but you need to be able to demonstrate that
the competencies
and the learning to that level.
Yeah.
And then there are the engineering. So in the UK, the Engineering Council regulates it. So the Engineering Council sets out a number of competencies called A, B, C, D, and E competencies, and essentially they're competencies around. So the A competencies are around your theoretical knowledge. The B competencies are around the application of that. I think the C is around sort of project management, finance type applications. D is around kind of team and such like, and E is around the environment and kind of wrapping up. So there's those five competencies, and you have to demonstrate that you've met all of those competencies. So in the UK, you can there's various different levels of registration, so you can be an engineering tech, but they're all based around the same competencies. It's just different levels within that competency framework. So you can be an engineering technician, you can be an incorporated engineer, or a chartered engineer. and the engineering council kind of sets these out, and then it has the engineering institutes get licenses to interview people, allowed to interview people and say whether they do. So I actually sit on those panels as people actually interviewing people to be a chartered engineer. And I don't do it very often, but it's one of the most interesting ways of giving back to engineering I could ever meet, because I've met some really interesting people from that. From one guy who was in the Air Force, and he was talking to us like, last week I was in Afghanistan being shot at. Here I am today being interviewed. It's like, do you ever wonder how you get somewhere? Yeah. I'm like, that's quite an interesting story. So it's all, all quite.
So get accredited.
So you get. I mean, you have to fill some forms in. It'll be reviewed. Then, as I was just alluding to, there's an interview with people, but it's not really an interview. It's more of a chat, essentially, to make sure that you are aware of what you wear, so you should never really be scared or put off by it. And then you become a chartered engineer or an incorporated engineer. That's one thing. I'll be very keen to always encourage people to. And everyone always keeps saying, "Well, what's in it for me?" Yeah. And it's like, well, you get a little bit of more satisfaction. You've proved to yourself that you've met these standards. Obviously, chartered engineer is a legally protected term in the UK, and it gives you
those brownie points.
It's a distinguishing. What you're always looking for is distinguishing.
You get the stripes, right?
Yeah. But companies are looking. But when you think about when you look for business, or when companies are looking for business, they want to. They want to grade you. They want to sell that, but they want to sell their people. They want to say, we've got this many people who've got PhDs, this many people that are chartered engineers, this many people that are and such like. Yeah. So it's as if you work like I am working for yourself as a consultant. The fact that you're a chartered engineer does help, because it says, well, an institution looked at you and you weren't too nuts. So. Yeah. I mean, I'm also a fellow of the institution as well, which is quite. I think there's not that many fellows who are CEngers, and there certainly were. And I got mine. I became a fellow of this at sort of 34, so I was one of very few under 40, because it's quite a prestigious thing. But I got that off the back of all the kind of the writing I do and the sort of leadership roles I'd had in the space industry. So all those little distinguishing things, and those things that kind of make you stand out and get you going, and really.
So kind of playing it forward, I guess what you're saying is just giving it out because you genuinely want to help out and you want to share your knowledge and wisdom with the other people, and it comes back. It
does. It really does. It really does. It really does come.
So what do you say to those people who might be listening and watching, who perhaps are finding it difficult to conjure up that passion?
That's a difficult question. But even I have days like that where you sit there and you think, do I really want to do this today? Should I not just go do something? But you have to kind of just perseverance. And I think you get that on difficult projects, on difficult things, when you're facing a difficult challenge. It's easy to want to kind of throw your arms up in the air and walk out, but you persevere and you plug through, and eventually you get it working, because generally you do, and then the feeling that you get like that is actually pretty amazing. So a sensible engineer would stop at that point and go become a banker or something, and never do another project again. Whereas a real engineer is like, what's next? I'll not make the same mistakes next time.
Yeah. So I guess I always say to people, look, if it's not your passion and you're just doing it for a means to an end, for a job, doing some money, you can't sustain that for too long.
You can. I think that's when people don't. I think you can quite easily tell the people that are doing something that they're just doing it for the money, and they're in it for a 9-to-5 job or whatever. You can kind of see those. I think. Yeah. I was talking to somebody on the phone the other day, and they were saying, "You're like me. You were born with soldering iron in your hand." And I was like, pretty much. Yeah. It took me a while, as I was saying about the university stuff. It took me a while to work out that's what I should be doing, and that's perhaps the direction I was going. But once it kind of clicks, it falls in. It's like, this is what I was. This is what I was. And actually, do you know what? We are quite lucky. As engineers, we are really lucky. Generally, we get to get up in the morning and go to a job that we enjoy and that we're passionate about.
I loved it.
We make a contribution to the world.
Oh, look, the foundation, the bedrock of the world is built by engineers.
It is. But we're quite lucky we get to do that. Many other people in the world get to just, unfortunately, they get up in the morning and they go to a job they hate just to provide for themselves. So we are really, we are really quite lucky.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Aaron. Thanks for being with me today and having a chat about your career, your wisdom, your ideas. I think a lot of people will find benefit from this. I mean, the engineering community around the world, and also how. And we talked about this earlier. To get hold of you, we talked about I guess your code is available on Hackster, is it?
So it's all mostly located on Hackster, on GitHub, on the Microjet Chronicles.
Yeah.
My email address, I'll give you my email address, so you can link that. Link that too.
Yeah.
Generally, I do try and reply if people email me asking questions.
So people want to reach out to you.
Yeah, I'm really open to that. I won't do people's homework for them.
No. So no homework.
So
right?
I won't do people's homework for them, but I will. But if people have to be, if students are struggling, I will kind of say, well, go away and read this or do that. I'll do that, but I'm not actually going to do your homework for you.
Yeah, so if anyone's listening or watching this, Adam has really been doing this a long time. He's got a lot of ideas and wisdom he can share with you. So if anyone's struggling with their projects or even their career, I'm sure Adam is accessible. But obviously don't bombard him too much with everything. He's got his own life to live. But yeah, I think that's great. So thanks very much, Adam. And I think we're closed there now.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed that interview with Adam. If you want to reach out to Adam, he is available on GitHub. His repository on GitHub contains a lot of his work. He's also on hackster.io. You can reach out to him there. And also, down underneath this video, there is an email address that you can use if you want to reach him directly. He has all of these chronicles, these articles that he's written, over 250 now, which are very comprehensive. So if you're a beginner or an experienced FPGA engineer and you want to get some more insight into Adam's work, then check out his chronicles on his website. So I've linked all of his information down below in the video. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to reach out to me as well, you can reach me on LinkedIn or just Google my name, Lance Harvey, and you'll be able to find me straight away on LinkedIn. You can also go to our website if you want, if you're looking for work, or if you're a hiring manager and you want to reach out and you want to maybe get some help on sourcing engineers, you can reach us on runtimerec.com. Have yourself a fantastic day or evening wherever you are in the world, and look out for some more videos coming your way shortly. Thanks very much and see you soon. Bye bye.